Welcome to today's Snack and Learn webinar, which is about reclamation success assessment using advanced remote sensing and AI technologies. And my name is Maysam Amani. I'm remote sensing team lead here at WSP Canada. I have about 15 years of experience in using remote sensing technologies for a variety of applications all over the globe. And our remote sensing team here at WSP is trying to combine a variety of remote sensing data sets like satellite, drone, airplane imagery with advanced AI and cloud computing models for our client actually to just reduce field survey cost and safety risk for our clients. So just letting you know, the presentation will be about 20 minutes, and then we will have 10 minutes for question and answer. So make sure you put your questions in the chat box, and we will make sure to answer them at the end of the presentation as much as we can. The other thing is, I should mention that is the presentation file is available in the handout box in the GoToWebinar platforms. So if you want, you can download it, and you can also look at it later and let us know even if you have any question after the class, after the actually presentation. Okay, so here's the agenda of the presentation. First, I will give a brief introduction about to remote sensing and reclamation. Then I'll talk about the project background, why and how we started this project. I'll also show you the data sets that we use and the parameters that we assessed. And finally, I will talk about the methodology, briefly about the methodology, and I will show you the results for each parameter. As I said, at the end of the presentation, we will have 10 minutes for question and answers. So what is reclamation? Reclamation simply is returning a disturbed land to equivalent capability. As you know, we do lots of anthropogenic activity with disturbed lands, let's say, or oil and sand regions, or mining sites, or even agricultural lands. And then we need to bring those lands back to their previous condition. And this process is called reclamation. So when we do reclamation, we also need to report our reclamation success to some of the organizations like regulators. And based on different regulations, different countries, we need to assess various parameters. For example, over oil sand exploration sites in Alberta, we need to assess vegetation and landscape condition, and do some of the parameters like the ground cover of different vegetation, or tree height, or if there is any, let's say, in terms of the landscape condition, if there is any clay pads or hill cuts over our sites, and then we report those, our estimation assessment to the regulators. So the common methods for reclamation success assessment are field survey and helicopter survey. For example, a helicopter fly over one of the sites for 1 or 2 minutes, and then let's say 2 people make notes and take photos within that 1 or 2 minutes. And there are lots of advantages with this methodology. For example, it's very expensive, especially when our sites are located in remote areas, or because of some unforeseen factors like weather, the budget can be inflated easily. The other important, actually, the main disadvantage is the low quality of the assessment that we get through this methodology, because, as I said, it's just only visual inspection, and actually there is no any quantitative information and data sets through this methodology. And also there is no, if there is any missing data, usually coming back to the site is not the option. And finally, there are lots of safety issues with these type of approaches. Because of those disadvantages that I mentioned, it's been a while that companies were looking for alternative solutions like remote sensing to see if those helicopter survey can be replaced by advanced remote sensing methods. So what is remote sensing? Remote sensing is measuring objects properties remotely from some platforms like drones, airplanes, and satellites. And each remote sensing system has two basic components. So one is the sensor, which actually measure the and collect the information. And the other one is the platform, which is used to deploy that sensor. For example, our body is platform and our eyes are sensors. We look around and we just get information from our surrounding area using our eyes. In this slide, you see different remote sensing platforms, and each of these platforms has its own advantages and limitations. That's why at the beginning of a project, we always discuss which one of these platforms actually can provide the most optimal solution in terms of the cost or safety or any other factors that are specific for a project. Here are some main advantages of remote sensing compared to traditional method, especially field survey. So in summary, I should say that remote sensing is usually very cost effective, and we also have access to the archive data sets, I can say back to, let's say, 1980s. So if you want to analyze anything in the past, so the data are already there, so we can go and use those historical archive data sets. The other advantage, main advantage, is the multi-temporal data set. So for example, satellite move around the Earth and collect the data from everywhere in the world, let's say every 6 days or every day. So using these multi-temporal data actually gives us a great opportunity to assess the changes and monitor and for monitor purposes in our projects. And finally, since using remote sensing, we reduce field survey. That's why we improve actually the safety for our clients. Okay, now let's talk about the project background. So as I mentioned, there were some companies who were looking for these remote sensing technologies. Our client was also looking for this remote sensing technology for reclamation success assessment. I believe since 2015, they tried a couple of things, but they couldn't come up with a solid model. So that's why they came to our reclamation scientist and asked if our company, someone in our company can do this work for them. So our reclamation scientists searched some of those research studies, and found a paper which actually says the similar parameters that they were looking for. So then they put in our company's internal Yammer group, is if there is anyone in the company who can do similar work. And I saw the post and I saw the paper and saw, oh, that's my own paper. So I was the first author of that paper, and I immediately came back to our reclamation science and said, yeah, well, I can definitely do those type of works. And then the discussion started. So initially we had lots of discussion because I needed to have more knowledge on reclamation and the regulations. And they also, our reclamation scientists also wanted to know more about remote sensing technology. So we discussed a couple of things like what parameters should be assessed based on reclamation regulations, and what parameters actually can be realistically assessed by remote sensing methods. We also discussed what field data and remote sensing data we need, and that the important question actually was if we can, using remote sensing, we can get similar results that we're getting from helicopter survey, or if there is any opportunity to even get more and better results compared to traditional helicopter surveys. So after several discussions, we submitted a proposal to our client, and here were the parameters actually we assessed. So you see that 4 main categories: land cover types, woody species, landscape condition, and species diversity. And each of them has some sub-parameters that we assess under each main category. The other things I wanted to mention, as you see, I divided them into 2 groups of black color and red color. So black parameters are those parameters that we had to assess based on reclamation regulation. But the red items are those that we thought we can get using remote sensing as an added value, and actually to show the advance of remote sensing compared to helicopter survey. So For example, species diversity is important for ecosystem bryophyte ecosystem health assessment in reclamation sites. So that's why we added more parameters, and we try to get all of these parameters to assess the reclamation success over our oil sand exploration sites. So we picked a study area in Alberta. We picked about 30 OSE oil sand exploration sites. You see with the cyan color in this figure, and you see one of the sites on the right side. So as you see, we also consider a control area around this each site, because we wanted to compare our result within the site with the surrounding area, because it was important to show that how our reclamation process is comparable with the adjacent area. The other thing I wanted to mention, we also collected some field data through some field survey, because we wanted to use these field data to train our machine learning model, and also to validate our remote sensing products. We used two types of remote sensing data sets. First one was very high resolution satellite images with enough spectral bands to classify and discriminate different land cover types. And also we used LiDAR data, high resolution LiDAR data, which were the main resource for identifying woody species and estimating their heights. Okay, now let's talk about the methodology, briefly about the methodology, and I'll show you the result for each parameter. So as I mentioned, the first parameter was the land cover classification. And used by land cover classification, we were looking for these 5 parameters. That is, I put them in the top right on this slide. So for land cover classification, we developed advanced AI model, object-based image analysis to classify different land cover classes. And just letting you know, it's been maybe nearly 10 years that I'm developing these type of models for a variety of applications, different projects, and I have published lots of papers, journal papers on this. So that's why I'm not going to the detail of this model. If you want to get more information about this model, you can look at my research guide profile, or just Google Scholar profile and read the papers on this topic. Here is one of the results. So you see different land cover types with different colors in this site. One of the things I should have mentioned, maybe, we did this land cover classification in 2 levels. So the first level was mainly classifying to primary land cover types like forested, peatland, water. And the second level was a more detailed land cover classification. For example, if it is a forested, is it treed, shrubby, or bryophyte? And on the right side, you also see that we calculated the area for different land cover types within the site, and also control area, because we wanted to compare our results with the adjacent area, which were not disturbed. Here are the accuracy levels. The classification accuracy level for main classes was about 84%, and for subclasses where the classification overall accuracy was 70%. I believe we could get a higher accuracy, but they were still good enough for the purpose of our project. The second parameter was woody species, and by woody species, we wanted to get these 3 information: the woody species height, stem counts, and canopy cover. And to do this, we mainly used LiDAR data. So we generated canopy height model by producing digital surface model and digital elevation model. And the canopy height model actually gave us the location of woody species and their heights, and also we could estimate the area of the canopies. Here are one of the example over one of the site. So different land cover types with their height, and the heights are actually displayed with different colors in this figure. We also assess the accuracy of our model. So the detection accuracy was 100%. It means that we could actually identify all the elevated vegetation woody species in our study area. And the height accuracy estimation was about half meter. Half meter, I think it's it's a little bit lower for some of the regulations. So I believe we could do something to get at least, I mean, 30 centimeter accuracy for height estimation. Landscape condition was the third parameter. It was easy parameter to be assessed. Actually, we created counter intervals using this elevation model, and we were looking for actually something like depression, clay paths, hill cuts over our sites. Here is an example of the results with different counters, and we use, as I said, these type of maps for assessing the landscape condition in our sites. And finally, the last parameter was the species diversity. So there are a couple of methods for species diversity estimation using remote sensing technology. In this project, we used the segmentation algorithm. So we developed a multi-resolution segmentation algorithm, and then we overlaid the segmentation results on a 5 meter by 5 meter, and then counted the number of segments within each 5 meter by 5 meter plot. So the number of the segments within each plot actually was an indicator of the number of species and the species diversity in the sites. Here's an example of the results. So different colors shows the different number of species within each plot. And we also did accuracy assessment by using field data actually. So the mean error was 4 species. So it means that within each 5 meter by 5 meter, we could estimate the number of species by plus minus 4 species in each plot. Okay, the final product was something like the one that I showed at the bottom of this slide. So when you submit your report to, let's say, regulators, their regulators have their own tool and record of observation, their own method for reporting the reclamation assessment. What we did, we modified this tool and record of observation to include all information that we were getting from remote sensing, like vegetation, woody species, species diversity, and landscape. And along with also this long report, we also added like the map for 4 parameters that we assessed to show all the information that we were getting from remote sensing technology. So after finishing the project, we submitted the report to the Alberta Energy Regulator, and within 1 month, we got the first reclamation certificate using remote sensing technology. We also received the Impactful Innovation Award in 2020, I believe among 3,000 nominations. Some closing thoughts. So after delivering the project, so because we have already done similar project using traditional methods, so we compare our cost with the previous project. So there is definitely an opportunity to reduce the cost and safety using this type of remote sensing technology compared to helicopter and field survey. Definitely, we improved considerably the data quality. Because as I said, helicopter just only surveys are based on visual inspection, but using remote sensor, we are producing lots of quantitative information. And there's also actually opportunity to apply these type of models to a broader areas, more sites, and by this we can reduce even the cost further. And as I mentioned, we developed these models over oil sand exploration sites in Alberta, but these similar models can be developed for other applications, let's say for reclamation assessment in mining sites or agricultural lands. And finally, I should mention actually these project was the first project that we initiated and we worked on. Right now we know the gaps, how we can improve the model, and actually we believe that we can even improve the model to get more accurate results in future projects. Here are some people who have involved in this project. So there were lots of reclamation scientists, GIS, remote sensing, and field technicians who helped with this project. Okay, so these were all I wanted to mention. I hope we have enough time for questions. So I'm happy to take any question if you have any. Thanks.
Thank you, Mason, for a fantastic presentation. Just mentioning quickly the housekeeping items. The presentation slides are available to download in the handout box on the GoToWebinar control panel. And also you can continue to log your questions in the question box as well on the GoToWebinar control panel. I will start with the first question. Can these models be used for reclamation success assessment over mining sites?
Oh yeah, as I mentioned, I mean, we developed the whole model for oil sand exploration sites, but definitely similar models with a little bit definitely some modification, because we first need to look for just read and understand the reclamation regulation for mining sites, and then develop similar models for mining sites or any other site. So there's definitely opportunity, I mean, to develop similar models for other applications as well.
Thank you. Another similar question here. Have you determined the model domain? In which forest latitudes or environments is a valid model choice?
Yeah, well, so as I mentioned, we developed this model in Alberta, Cold Lake region in Canada, but as we have developed similar models, for example, for land cover classification or species diversity in different countries. So, for example, I have done land cover classification in UK, in Australia, in US, and in Brazil. So we have developed similar models in other regions. So that's why I'm confident that we can apply and modify these models for other domains.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There's a question here on NDVI. Did you use it to calculate land cover classification?
Oh, yeah, NDVI was, I mean, the simplest method and the simplest index for land cover classification. For if you look at my papers, I mean, maybe just more than 20, 30 papers. So we're not just only using NDVI, we're using hundreds of similar indices like NDVI, both spectral, textural, and geospatial, I mean, indices within our machine learning models to produce the highest accuracy level. So it's not only NDVI, we're using NDVI along with other spectral indices and other features to improve the classification accuracy. So land cover classification using NDVI will not provide the highest accuracy. So definitely you're looking for developing and using more advanced models.
Thank you. How long did it approximately take to collect the data and then analyze it?
So yeah, in this project, we actually did some field survey because it's not just mandatory for all projects. We did field survey because we wanted to train our machine learning models and also validate and do accuracy assessment. So that field survey I think we did it in 3 to 4 days. Then just we use archive satellite images, so you can actually collect the data within 1 week, 2 weeks. And then for the development model, it took for us about 6 months to develop the whole model and prepare the report. But right now we have developed all the models. So if we want to apply to somewhere in other project, it should be very, very, I mean, very can be easily and quickly done.
Thank you.
So if I want to say let's say for a new project, we may need, I mean, let's say even if you want to do validation, just 1 week I put for field survey, 1 week to get all the data sets, and then 1 month to produce all the results and reports.
Fantastic, thank you. Can you talk a bit more about how you detect species diversity?
Oh yeah, so there are a couple of methods in remote sensing field for species diversity. And as I said, we did segmentation. So we first apply segmentation on our datasets, and to do this, we use both, I mean, satellite imagery and LiDAR datasets. And one of the important things here was the scale of the segmentation, because using segmentation, you can produce larger object segments or smaller segments. So here we actually used field survey and trial and error to find the most optimal scale for segmentation. Then we overlaid that segmentation on a 5 meter by 5 meter, because we wanted to actually calculate the number of species within 5 meter by 5 meter plus. Maybe in some regulation you need to do it in 10 meter by 10 meter plus. And finally, we automatically actually the model automatically calculated the number of segments within each plot. So the number of segments actually was the indicator of the number of species within each plot, and it was actually indicator of species diversity.
Thank you. There's a comment here and two questions related. The comment is the accuracy level was much lower for forested dead vegetation. How could you improve this? And is it lower as brown dead color is similar to soil?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. So yeah, we had low accuracy for some of the classes, and as I mentioned, I mean there are opportunities to improve these results. So one of the thing was actually we couldn't get this we use worldview half meter 80 spectral bands, but for these type of project, if you want to, I mean, get higher accuracy levels, you may go with, for example, hyperspectral data. And hyperspectral data, you can improve the accuracy detection for, let's say, dead vegetation or weed detection using those hyperspectral data. Or if you use, for example, drone imagery, multispectral data with, let's say, 8, 9, 10 spectral bands, you've got drone imagery, that will give you a better result compared to satellite images. So yeah, the accuracy for some of the classes were low, but we know how we can improve them. And finally, I should have mentioned that the accuracy was still enough for getting the report and getting the certificate from regulators. But yeah, we can improve them in future with a couple of methods.
Thank you.
And dead vegetation was similar. Yeah, the spectral response of dead vegetation was similar to soil, but again, there are some opportunity to, for example, detect them using, for example, let's say LiDAR intensity data sets, if there is any dead vegetation, or soil, if it is, let's say, the soil moisture, we can get some of the information using LiDAR intensity as well.
Thank you. We keep getting a lot of questions. I will cover a few more. Have you calculated the carbon footprint impact of remote sensing versus traditional?
Oh, I have. So I did my PhD on wetland mapping using remote sensing, and we did a couple of study on carbon estimation over wetland area like peatlands. But it was just mainly for research purposes. But I haven't done any practical projects, and for like over and the project, the studies that I have done was over large area, for example, for the entire Canada, rather than a specific site to get more detailed information. So I know that how we can do this work, but I haven't practically done on a specific projects, industrial projects on this.
Thank you. The next question is, I'm curious, have you tried deep learning models as well, for example, transformers or CNN-based methods?
Oh, yeah, we do develop deep learning CNN models for a variety of application, not only for this application, but let's say other application, forestry, even meteorology, oceanography. One of the things is, for deep learning model, we had to have large amount of field training data, which weren't available in this project, and we didn't want it to do it. That's why we used random forest model. So I have already, I mean, compared the accuracy of those machine learning model, deep learning model with each other. And I should say, yeah, if you have enough field data, go with deep learning, which will provide the best model, the best result. But if you don't have enough model, random forest would be the best machine learning model you want to go with.
Thank you. I will take the last question here, just to respect everyone's time. What was the biggest unexpected result in developing this methodology?
Uh, there were a couple of things, especially, as I said, we did land cover classification on 2 levels. So the first level was the main classes, 8 classes, and it was easy. So to discriminate, let's say forested from wetland or from water bodies. But when we went to the second level for deeper more detailed land cover classification, for example, different forest types, I mean, using remote sensing, it's a little bit challenging to get high accuracy. And as I said, there are a couple of other methods, for example, use hyperspectral data or use higher resolution satellite images like 30 centimeter world view 3 images with more spectral bands to do this. But I believe our accuracy for the second level was low. And as I mentioned, for example, dead vegetation or weed detection, we had lots of challenges. For example, one of the first objective that we wanted to do was detect a weed with high accuracy, and we tried to do it, but the accuracy was low. And we just, in our report, we just put some solution how we can do this in the future. So in terms of the species detection, it was the accuracy, the other parameters like species diversity, woody species, and landscape condition. I think our accuracy was good enough. One of the other challenges, the woody species height estimation using LiDAR data. And yeah, the people are saying, for example, we can get better than 30 centimeter for height estimation, but to be honest, in the practical projects, over vegetated area, especially if it is complex vegetated area, really getting to 30 centimeter height estimation, it's very challenging. So that would be also the other challenge.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mason, for a fantastic presentation. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today and for submitting all these great questions. All outstanding questions will be answered directly by the presenters. So feel free to reach out to Mason via the contact details shown on the screen, and we hope to see you in our upcoming sessions. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you. We will wrap up the session now. Thank you. Have a wonderful day, everyone.